So now let's go on to the lead vocal. So it's a little bit slightly different. The first thing that we've got on here is the console 1, which is channel 26, and we're looking at a Neve EQ, lifting a bit of the low end. This is what we've got. This is the track without any processing at all. So if you notice, I press shift and phase invert on console 1, and that means that if we look at the track, it's saying bypass. And so what this will look at now, if I play this is how the track came to me when we started looking at the mix, or when I started looking at the mix.
Messy aggravations and sacred questions. You struck my locks, some marijuana if you got some.
When I'm listening to this, I'm kind of hear a bit of an edge and a bit of a bite. So what I've just started to begin with is look at what I was doing with the Class A, like the Neve channel, and I've brought in again, so I've got a bit of like the drive. I'm going at about half, and I'm using that quite a bit. So just have a listen now with the
messy aggravations and sacred questions. You struck my locks, some marijuana if you got some.
So what the Neve channel's doing is, as I'm driving it, it's actually making a bit more distortion on it, so it's making it a bit edgier, which will help with the mix, because in the chorus obviously it gets a lot louder and a lot heavier, and that again, once I've got the distortion where I kind of like it, the next thing that I'm doing is I'm using the CLA vocals again, and I'm using a pretty similar setting to Dale's lead vocal. So I'm just having a look now. I wouldn't be surprised if they'd be very, very similar, that were copied over. So not much difference between the two. So all that's happened is I've taken some of the reverb off because I don't really need it that much, and I've also just tightened the volumes up a bit more as well, because it's obviously a louder track. So
messy aggravations and sacred questions. You struck my locks, some marijuana if you got some.
And the other thing that we should just mention as well is, like, if you listen to the vocal, is we've got on the delay on the vocal track, we've actually got a delay slapback happening over the verse. And that's been committed, so that was actually recorded in and sent over. So I don't know how it was done, but it's included on. So then that'll add a slapback onto this. So this one.
Messy aggravations and sacred questions. You struck my locks, some marijuana if you got some.
The next section is the Pultec EQ on this vocal track. So I'm actually driving it a bit more now. So I've actually brought it up, and what I've actually done is I'm cutting out the attenuating the 60 hertz. So it's a filter that's anything below 60 hertz is being cut out, and I'm taking that quite high. And I'm doing something similar with the 5K as well. So I'm actually running off quite a lot at the top end as well, after I've boosted a little bit in this vocal track. So let's just have a listen to that. If I press E, yeah, it's going to take that off me.
Messy aggravations and sacred questions. You struck my.
So the EQ on this, I'm actually rolling off, and it's actually making it a little bit smoother. And I'm also on this channel now, I'm also actually boosting it quite a lot.
Messy aggravations and sacred questions. You struck my locks, some marijuana if you got some.
So taking off between 8 and 9, you actually notice that there's actually dropping the volume down. So I've done a bit more of like a volume compensation on the volume control of this plugin.
Messy aggravations and sacred questions. You struck my locks, some marijuana.
And then the other thing that's happening is the chorus vocals also going back to another delay, like a slapback echo. And it's one of the classic settings on the Space Echo. So I'm just going to listen to the slapback delay on its own. So what we've done is I've got the send here. That's being sent to this auxiliary track, so they also named slapback. I put it on pre-fade so I can just solo the track on its own. And I'm using the Space Echo preset from Sound Toys, which you'll probably find in Classics. And then the only other thing that I'll probably change then, once I've done that, is I'll change the mix so it's fully wet. So it's normally, I think it's normally around about middle. I just take it all the way to the end. And then I'll normally try and ride that into where I think that level's pretty good. So So the Space Echo setting is like this. So there's two. So there's like a little bit of a ping-ponging effect, and then put that, just basically just making a little bit more space for the lead vocal.
Messy aggravations. You struck my lungs. Some marijuana if you get. Messy aggravations. Sacred questions. You struck my lungs. Some marijuana.
So we've now got this is like the main vocal. This is like the main vocal on its own.
Messy aggravations. Sacred questions. You struck my lungs. Some marijuana.
Final thing then, what we've also got on this lead vocal section is there's another EQ which I'm boosting about 12k.
Messy aggravations. Sacred questions. You struck my lungs. Some marijuana if you got some.
Now the other settings on this vocal, this goes across all of the tracks. So I've almost once I got a balance of the vocals that I like, the lead vocals like Dale's vocal and then Scott's vocal. Basically, I was listening to the overall list vibe of the track, and I was thinking, okay, well, let's go back from the top and just listen one more time. Open this folder up. So
Gouge away. You can gouge away. Stay all day if you want to.
this is almost like finalizing EQ. It's just like lifting a little bit at the top end of like 12k, just bumping that up a bit. I'm catching any little transients of a slow limiter, which is the LE2A, and I've put this, if you notice, in dual mono. So if there is anything like on one channel or to the other, any extreme movements or anything, like the one channel won't affect the other side. Because it's vocal, it shouldn't really matter too much because everything's more or less straight up the middle. And then the final plugin that I'm using is a similar thing with the decapitator. I'm actually looking at the distortion, which is set to E, which is an EMI console. So I'm driving this as a distortion, and I'll just show you what that sounds like because the mix is quite low. And what I'll normally do is I might start completely wet and then just show you what it'll sound like on its own.
Gouge away. You can gouge away. Stay all day.
And so that is obviously over the top, and that's why it's quite low. It's the idea is it's just a bit of distortion on a fuzz just to kind of lift the vocals up a little bit.
Gouge away. You can gouge away. Stay all day if you want to. Gouge away. You can gouge away. Stay all day if you want to.
So it isn't doing too much, but again, it's just thickening the track and bringing up the body of the track a little bit and lifting it to kind of kit through the mix again. So just go for a section, just do a bit of the verse.
You can gouge away. Stay all day if you want to.
Just sort of that.
You can gouge away, stay all day if you want to. You can gouge away, stay all day if you want to. Elevations, some sacred questions, you struck my lungs, some marijuana if you got some. Messy aggravations, some sacred questions, you struck my lungs, some marijuana if you got some. Gouge away.
So it's only all of these EQs on the EQ, the compressor, and this drive section. It's only doing a bit of a lift. So just section.
Messy aggravation.
Everything off.
Messy aggravation. Some sacred questions. You struck my lungs. Some marijuana. Messy aggravation. Some sacred questions. You struck my lungs. Some marijuana.
So when you're listening to it on its own, you don't really notice too much of a difference between the overall volume of the track. And when I'm listening in solo, I'm not really listening that much to the track as it is just now. when I'm listening in solo, I'm not usually listening in that sense. So like the EQ decisions that I've made just then, it doesn't make sense when you're listening to it because the bump up it doesn't really make much difference. But it's only when you actually have the guitars and the volume you actually notice a difference on the track. The processing is just kind of pushing it above the heavy guitars or the louder guitars in the chorus, and that's what this Discapitator bit does. It kind of raises the overall volume, it drops the volume a little bit, but the overall average sound of the track is a bit better. So that's what I'm actually looking at the lead vocal. The next section then we've got are these backing vocals, which again are in conjunction with the chorus vocals. So I think when I was actually looking at mixing this, I looked at the chorus vocals and the distortion all as one piece, and I think I decided that I chose this track here. I ended up saying, no, this is going to go in as a lead vocal processing rather than the backing vocal processing. So I literally moved it from one folder to the other. So we've got the backing vocals of the chorus. So this is the processing I've actually got on these tracks now. And this is how they came and as they were sent to me. So they've been recorded with the effects added in. And so that's how I decided that this track here... I chose that as a lead vocal, and these two I've almost decided to process these as like a double track. I put the console one again, as I mentioned, on the guitars. It's a similar thing where I've put the plugin on, and I've not actually engaged anything on it, and I just let it run through. So in theory, I could probably take it off and it wouldn't make any difference. So, but as I said, I just left that on. So all I've actually done is I've panned these left and right. So look, here we go. So I just panned these left and right and balanced them as they might go to fit with the lead vocal. So they're already quite distorted. So obviously the next thing that we're probably going to need is another distortion box. So Deluxe is like a Shure mixer, and it's basically just dialing a setting that was kind of a bit more like over the top, and then if I go full mix, and then I thought, well, let's add like a analog delay. So the Moogerfooger is like it's a really old plugin for Avid, and it comes in like the complete bundle, the plugin bundle that they do. It used to be like a Pro Tools HD license, but you can get it for native now. I think it's like 50 quid a year, and you get tons and tons of plugins with that. And I'm using this and just to kind of add a little bit of delay, and I thought just it was a different flavour to the Echo Boy, and add that on top. So the mix was on 2, so I just want to show you what the difference is without the plugin. And then another thing that I thought was like, well, add like another. I'm using Echo Boy again. I was just cycling through the effects, and I thought, well, let's just go again for. I'm using Echo Boy now for distortion. Almost sounds like it's phasing a little bit with the way it's kind of coming in and out, and I'm mixing it. I'm mixing the balance, and I think what I was doing then. And the final thing that I did is like with this now is that I inserted the Ozone Imager, and it was a similar thing where I'm using this to actually try and spread out the image of these backing vocals because they don't need to be in the middle. What I'm looking at trying to do is just trying to make hit out on the sides a bit more. So when the chorus comes in, it sounds like there's like a much bigger impact on the sound field and the recording level there. So let's just have a quick listen to what that does. And what I've actually done is when I'm using the Ozone Imager, I'll have a trim before it, and I can bring the volume down. So just shift click it. I'll just put it beneath. So we're at minus. I think I've brought it down by 4 dB, and I'll just show you what happens. So. So this is before the trim. This is before the spreading. So it is literally just spreading the image off to the side. And I think when I was looking at this vocal, when I was listening to these tracks, I think I had a go between this and wider. And I think overall, I think I preferred the Ozone limiter or the Ozone Imager for this track. And it is, again, just so it was just like spreading wide, and it was just outside where the main vocal was. And it's a similar thing, like doesn't make much sense on its own without listening to the track as a whole. And there's no other effects or processing going on because it was already pretty distorted. It was already like a bit of a delay on, and I've added like 2 sets of delays on top and more distortion. So it was an extreme effect, and that's why I ended up moving the lead vocal over to the main track. So I take the vocal out. All you see is that there's the lead vocal. These other vocals are on the sides, just a bit further out. And then what happened then is what I've done so far is I was focusing really on the first verse and the first chorus. Because of the way the song's structured out, we're going verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, and ending. And because the track's laid out in that sort of sense, the clean guitars have already got the automation set up. We've got some vocal sort of stuff sorted out for the vocals, so it was pretty much all fine. And then the final thing that we were looking at doing then is just coming over to the ending, that the tracks themselves were kind of set ready. So it's one of those things where you set everything up and it all kind of goes together. Then the final thing that I actually end up having doing is that I think I got Dale copying Scott's lead vocal with the gouge away. Oh, you can gouge away, and I've just brought those vocals down underneath. So they're just underneath to kind of balance out and catch that. So that is more or less the overall parts of it. So